Okay, I got the word. Well, hi, everybody. This is really fun and exciting to see you in this different space and in this forum. My name's Andy Mizels. To the people who I haven't met, some of the day camp folks, this is the camp peer community session. Camp, it's just the beginning. So if this is not the place you meant to be, you might want to get off the plane and go back to the people at the front, and they'll direct you to your flight. But go back to the Spot Me platform and find the session that you meant. I'm the Director of Special Projects at JCC Association of North America. I've been very fortunate to be doing some work with the overnight camps this past year. Joining me today from JCC Association is my colleague, Janine Acevedo, who's a program associate, and she, as we noted a second ago, is the face behind all the visas and all the letters regarding visas. So this is your chance to say hi, and now you've got a face to go with all that correspondence. We're also joined by Steve Engel from JCC Association, not so long ago of Camp Tamarack Camps, who has been doing a lot of work with both overnight and day camps. You can find Janine or I if you have any questions, if you need to get in touch with us during the session. I'm really thrilled to have the overnight and day camp folks together. We haven't been together in quite some time, and it's really lovely to have this forum of all the camp people, because camp people, as we know, are the best people.
The best.
I just want to make a note to the day camp directors. You know that you have your roundtable right after this call. You've got the information, but when we get to the end of the call, we'll throw that link right back into the chat for you. I want to acknowledge the man sitting to my right. We're really excited that we have, what's your name? Doron Krakow, President and CEO of JCC Association. We're going to be able to have a conversation with him. We're going to leave plenty of time for questions and answers, but Doron, you got to sit tight because we got to pay the bills. And we've got a bunch of announcements, okay? Before I make these announcements, I'm also acknowledging that, you know, the day and overnight camps, I think, you know, we met regularly all year. So this is not really anything new. It's exciting, it's pro-con, it's part of a bigger platform, but we've been doing this for a long time. So I feel pretty casual about it. Maybe that's a mistake, but I feel pretty casual about it. So first of all, this session is being recorded. We've been doing that all year too. We know that some of you may not want to be recorded, in which case you can turn off your camera. This is my cheat sheet. I'm being completely transparent. But if you feel comfortable staying visible, we'd like it because it's fun for us to see all the faces and feel like we're together. We want everyone to feel welcome at ProCon 21. We've been working to build inclusive spaces so everyone feels respected, safe, and included. And so we encourage you, if you'd like to rename yourself in Zoom with your name, your camp. That would be great. So we see who we're talking to and everybody else sees. And if you'd like to add your preferred personal pronouns, go ahead and do that too. We've enabled closed captioning. You can turn that off if it's sort of distracting to you. It's the button on the bottom toolbar. Again, if there's something that you're missing or not seeing, be in touch with Janine in the chat and we'll try to fix it. And again, the commercial. We are thrilled to offer the conference at no cost to our JCCs and camps. That's because we have incredibly generous sponsors who really believe in our work. And their representatives are going to be here and they're going to share the newest products and expertise. So the virtual vendor hall, everybody's going to have these booths, virtual booths, and it's kind of cool in the virtual vendor hall. You can connect with them anytime during ProCon 2021 and beyond, and use the chat feature. I just want to give you a little, you know, heads up that the JCamp 180 Grinspoon folks have a table, and you know, couldn't hurt. Stop by, say hello. Hi, it's me. You know, it might be helpful for you. Okay, I think, Doron, we can get started. What do you think? Unless you'd like more announcements.
If you've got anything more, I'm up for it.
I think that's it. And I just want to say I'm the person you will hear these from. And by Thursday, you'll be saying them by heart, I think. So here we go. So I'm really excited that you're here. Before we dig in, you know, Doron has a very long and impressive background in the Jewish communal world, and I thought it would be nice to share just a few highlights of your resume, because I don't know how much people know about you. So
probably more than they'd care to already.
Well, I chose just a few highlights. In 1987, division head, Camp Sprout Lake.
Yes, indeed.
1988, 1989, head counselor, Camp Sprout Lake. 1990 director, Camp Sprout Lake.
Yes, indeed.
There you go. And I would say for this group, that's really all you need to know. Because if you're a camp person and you've put in your years at camp, that really tells you everything you need to know about a person, and it tells one camp person everything they need to know about another camp person. And I found myself in a loop, and I'd like to stop and get out. But we all share that. Everybody here on this call really loves camp and knows what I mean by that definition, and it feels great to be here with you. And I will also say that you were a get for this session. Because, you know, it's the first peer community at ProCon 2021. And I think a lot of people probably wanted Doron's time, and we got him. So thank you. Really, truly, thank you. And, you know, at some point, I'm going to ask you why. Why you wanted to be here. And I'll just make the full disclosure that Doron and I go way, way, way back. And I tried multiple times to steal him from Camp Sprout Lake to work at Camp Tel Yehuda, but he stayed at that camp. I think probably that made sense. You met your wife, your kids all work at that camp, right?
It became home.
It became home.
Yeah.
In that way that we all understand so well. Okay, so here we go. Before we get into camp specifically, let's try to lay the foundation and frame the conversation a little bit. You are a person who's very much involved with the American, not even the North American Jewish landscape. You know who's out there, you know what's going on. You were there before COVID, during COVID, and we know after COVID. So maybe you can tell us where we are in this moment. You did a little bit of that in the opening remarks that you made, but maybe with an eye toward how these folks might be looking at it. Where are we, and how is it different in light of the year we've had?
I'm happy to do that, but I have to first say, looking out at the folks on Zoom. First of all, I'm so excited that so many people are in this session. I'm very excited to see people's faces. The way we're set up here in this room, your faces are actually at some distance from ours, so I'm having trouble focusing in, but there are a few familiar faces and names. Buddy, we're definitely going to ask you to reprise your Hinei Matov before this meeting is over. So if your guitar is handy, that'll be good. Thank you, Bernardo.
Oh, much better.
And really, I'm thrilled. And, you know, before I get to the question, Andy, I want to offer two, you know, simple things. There isn't a more important group to meet with at ProCon than the people who are responsible for our camps. And we're going to get into that in a big way. But what you do, what we do, those of us that are in the camp field, is just about the most important thing we can do if we want to invest in a future that we believe is going to be filled with greater things than the present has. That's what camp does. It fills up people's lives. Andy alluded casually to the fact that that summer of '87, that was the first summer for 34 consecutive summers that either I or Janet, who became my wife 4 years later, or one of our three sons was at that camp. Camp literally became home. And the people that we worked with literally became our family, and they are our family to this very day. You know what I'm talking about because it's your life as well. And if you're thinking about whether it's going to be your life years after you may no longer be doing it full time, I can tell you that it is. Camp is home. And that's why this was critically important for me. Number two, in the category of full disclosure, Andy was my boss when I came into the professional Jewish world, my first boss and my greatest mentor. So whatever I've had the opportunity to become professionally, it has been because I learned at the knee of a brilliant leader, a brilliant camp leader. And I've been honored over the years to have the chance to renew that relationship, not just personally, but on a professional level. So trust me, having Andy on this team is a great thing for all of us. I know it's a great thing for me. So let me say a couple of things about the big picture and the landscape. You all know better than anybody else what happens when you interrupt the camp cycle. And we interrupted it in the summer of 2020. Our overnight camps were entirely interrupted. Our day camps were substantially interrupted. Some operated, some didn't. They operated shorter or in a more unusual way. There is a great deal of pent-up need for what we do. Pent-up need on the part of campers, pent-up need on the part of their families, pent-up need on the part of the staff. What you and we have experienced in the larger context is the hibernation of in-person Jewish life on this continent. We hibernated at a congregational level, and we hibernated at a day school level, and we hibernated at a Jewish Federation level. We have learned to interact in an unusual way through these boxes on our screens. But this is not the way the Jewish community lives and functions. It's not the way camps live and function. We're about getting dirty and being outside and interacting. We're about folk dancing and ruach and song sessions. We're about soccer and sports. We're about Capture the Flag, which, by the way, you can see we are the international champions of Capture the Flag. We're about being out there. And the Jewish community has been in hibernation. Everybody's been in hibernation. That's a real challenge because we've adjusted to a different way of doing things and to a different way of interacting. And while we are anticipating the resumption and a substantial reliance on muscle memory, we're going to need to be great this summer to remind ourselves and everybody else why what we do is irreplaceable in any other way. There is no online alternative to providing a serious Jewish summer camp experience. We can fill the space a little bit here and there, and there were some very robust attempts last summer to provide something as an intermediary. But we're about what we do when we come together. And if we hit the ground strong this summer, we'll be in a position to reignite the work that we are most critically suited to doing.
Well, thanks, everybody. I think we can end it. I mean, it's beautiful, everything you said. And I think that this audience really feels everything that you've just said. And I appreciate the opening comments very much. And it made me verklempt and I lost my place in my questions. So I also, if I didn't make it clear at the beginning, I want to make it clear now that we're actually going to leave plenty of time for questions from you. Doron really did say he would like this to be a conversation. So when the time comes, I have a few questions for Doron, but I'm happy to defer to the room. You can start putting questions in chat now if you'd like, and I'm happy to move to those sooner than later, but we're sort of getting us rolling here. When you did the opening session about an hour ago, there was a conversation about leadership. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I don't ask the leadership question because Doron just talked about leadership, but I think it's important to ask it here with these folks. What impact did your experience as a camp person, and you can feel free to identify what camp person means, but everybody sort of knows, have on you as a leader, as a convener, as a person involved in Jewish life, as a career, a person who got an MBA at one point and stepped away and then came back. So what did camp have to do with you as a leader? How did it make you a leader? And you can even talk about the different roles you had in camp, like what collectively brought you to where you are.
Listen, we were all familiar years ago with the book, Everything I Ever Needed to Know in Life I Learned in Kindergarten. That certainly wasn't true for me. I hope Mrs. Dale is not listening someplace because she would be offended that I didn't learn it all from her. But I do think that most of what I learned about becoming a leader, I learned from watching leaders in camp. I learned from being challenged to exercise leadership in different contexts in leadership development as a chanich, as a camper, as a madrich, as a counselor, as a merakez, as a unit head. The concentrated nature of camp and the insulated nature of camp has provided us with extraordinary laboratories for leadership development. And we know growing up in camp in that continuum, that generational continuum in day camp that begins when you're 4 or 5 years old and takes you to your early teens, or an overnight camp sometimes even more pronounced where you get there at 8 years old and through much of the staff in their early 20s, it is an ongoing continuum of people who are there year after year after year, and you watch leaders and you observe leaders, whether you think you're doing that or not. You watch them grow and you grow. You get to emulate the things that you saw. What is the most beautiful aspect of camp is becoming the keeper of the traditions of camp. Becoming the owner when you hit the right year of your camp career or your CIT year or your first year as a counselor, where it's then your job to bear responsibility for the things that your role models bore before you. And because camp is a concentrated enterprise, We have it for a week. We have it for a session. We have it for a summer, a whole summer, 8 weeks as a camper. We have to pile an awful lot of experience in there. The preparation from notion to implementation of the show, of the talent show, of the production for your ADA, for your unit. The leadership development programs that we're in, leadership training and counselor and training programs. The experiences, whether it's in the swimming pool or on the ropes course where you're looking to accomplish and achieve whatever the measurable achievement is. It used to be those Red Cross levels. You're earning a badge, you're earning a recognition, and it's got to happen fast and it's got to happen in a concentrated way. And you have to infuse the people that are doing it with an extraordinary amount of excitement and energy and engagement. And we watch and learn and experience, and I think we simply absorb it by osmosis. It just gets into you, and you know your turn is coming, and you're hungry for your turn. You want to be able to prove that you're worthy of the responsibilities that were borne by your role models who came before you. I don't know that there's been anything in my professional career that prepared me better. And Andy, you and I will remember, a couple other folks who are Young Judea people on this call, in this session will remember that we were little more than kids when we got our really big jobs, when we became an executive director or a camp director. You said 1990. I was 25 years old when I became a camp director, an overnight camp director. We had to grow up fast, or we had to behave as if we had been sufficiently grown up to handle the responsibilities that we had. And we weren't bad at it as a result of the fact that we had been piled on with more and more responsibility with each additional role that we had as an older camper, as a younger staff person, and then from Madrid to Marrakech to head counselor to director, we had learned in a laboratory of leadership. And those are the exact same skills that we bring to bear today in whatever roles we're in. Thank God you're in the camp roles that you're in. I'm not as close to camp as I used to be, but everything I learned about being a senior leader or an executive were the skills that I developed in the places that you bear responsibility for, and that's who I am. I'm a camp guy, and I will always be a camp guy.
I feel exactly 100% the same, 1,000% the same. As you were talking about how you were 25 when you were a camp director, I was 26. It was ridiculous when you think about it. However, we weren't bad, as you said. But what that made me think of was that it was a different time. It was less litigious. It was, parents were different, kids were different. We didn't have, people filming every minute of every day and putting stuff up on video to send home. I mean, I mentioned to the overnight directors regularly how much I admire them and how I'm not certain I'd be able to do it now. It's a much more difficult job. It's also a much more professional job, I think. So maybe you could address that. How do you keep, when I get very corny because I do have some goosebumps, because it's so true, everything you said. And I'm so proud of having been a camp director, and that's who I'll always be in my kishkas, even though I pointed to my chest, my kishkas are real. How do you retain that sort of enthusiasm and passion that we had when we were young camp directors, when the world is different and you have to you do have to be not that we were professional, but come on, it's different now. There are different demands. So how do you balance that?
It's very different. First of all, I'm just smiling because I noticed that Melissa Peters is in this session and Michelle Copeland is in this session. It's hard for me to read the names, but I'm getting some recognition, which is really nice. Seeing more and more familiar faces. Look, when I was a camp director, when I was the national director of Young Judea, I was little more than a kid myself. I don't think today I would have been hired for those jobs in those roles. I don't know that any of us would have been at that time. We have professionalized, we've grown up. It's not a kid's thing anymore, but all of the constraints within which we operate, all of the accountability, the responsibility, the need to be as engaged as we are with levels of interaction with our out-of-camp constituents is the price of admission for doing the brilliant work that we get to do the rest of the time. And it's critically important that we be proficient at those things to leave the maximum amount of time for impacting the lives of the people in our charge, right? That's the mission. We are in the infusing and transforming the identities of the people in our charge business. That's what we do. Those other things are critically important, and we've got to be expert enough at them to enable us to stay focused. You heard me talking about what was the guiding light? That was the question in that opening session a little while ago. And I mentioned that the critical thing for me has always been never lose track of the point. Never lose track of why we're doing the things that we're doing, so that you can create a proper accounting of the things that must be done competently and capably in order to deliver the goods on what this thing is all about. And I actually was so happy when Andy told me that we were going to be talking both to day camp and overnight camp people, because it allows me to share a couple of things about how these two parts of our work are markedly different from one another. Overnight camp is not day camp that you stay at for a week or a month at a time. And day camp is not overnight camp except you go home at night. These are two different, distinct educational mediums. And I think it's important to underscore the distinctions so that we can, again, keep an eye on what are the things that each one has to contribute to the greater good that is complementary to the other. The interaction we have with our kids at day camp is an interaction we share with their families every single day. It is fundamentally a family engagement initiative where we have the kids for a few hours, but the kids are brought to us and we interface with the people who are bringing and dropping them off at the beginning of the day. And whatever we do with them during the day, we send home for them to do with their parents, their siblings, their caretakers, whomever is looking after them. And that's the cycle. It's an energy cycle where we bring in and we infuse and we send home and they infuse. And by dint of the experience we have on an ongoing basis, at the end of a camp session, we have worked the family and we have family continuity to pick up on. Overnight camp is a different animal altogether because the kids come to us and stay with us, and our interactions with the families are far more superficial once the summer begins. In overnight camp, it is all about the people in camp and our ability to imbue in them a sense of who they are and a sense of why community is the critically empowering part of being part of something larger than yourselves. They are tested in their independence. They are tested in their interactability. They are tested in their responsibility as part of a group. And we send home kids at the end of the summer rooted in who they are as a result of the experiences that we have given them. And that rootedness stays with them. So we have transformational responsibility of the target audience in overnight camp. We have engagement responsibility of the target audience and their families and their surrounding support system in day camp. And each of these are critical to building and growing community. They are building blocks. One is not a precursor to the other. They are partners that sometimes will work in tandem in that way and sometimes will simply be distinct enterprises. Not every day camp kid is an overnight camp kid, and not every overnight camp kid is going to become a day camp staffer. There are things that they do marvelously and beautifully distinct from one another. But as allies, they create a 1-2 punch that is unrivaled in experiential education and unrivaled in building and imbuing a sense of identity, who we are and why what we do together is more important than anything else.
Okay, I have 35 more questions that we didn't prepare for. So, but I do want, Doron cannot see the chat. So I want to share that there are a couple of people on the call who wrote in the chat, you know, same here, I'm 26, this is my first day. I'm 27, it's my first summer. And I am so warmed by the, you know, people writing back saying, you got it, you'll be great, we got your back. And that's really the beauty of the network. I mean, it's really fabulous. And even though every camp is different and has their traditions and has their style and their routine, there's something really lovely about this family of camps that we have. And I think you articulated so beautifully how the day and overnight can work in tandem and also be proud of what they do separately. But that leads me to a question about, we were going to talk a little bit about the place of camping in the JCC movement. So I want to add on to that, assuming we could do more integration, you know, we don't, you know, we're good right now. But assuming we could do more, how does that play into the place of the camping in the movement? And then, what the movement means, of course, for the broader community, Jewish community.
Look, I'm going to answer that question, Andy, in a way that is not first and foremost the direct answer to the question, but I think it's really important contextually. Here are things that we know about camp that we don't always acknowledge, and which it's critically important that we do. Camp is an educational enterprise, experiential educational enterprise. But when we think about education, we have a tendency to think about rote learning and memorization. We have a tendency to think about obligatory, academic, formal settings, and we are not that. So here's the way I have come to view and see camp over the years. Camp is a voluntary, repeating, immersive, intensive, purposeful Jewish educational enterprise. And each one of those things are critical and distinctive from anything else. The fact that people come to camp because they want to come to camp, and the moment they're out of camp, their clock is starting on when they get to go back, is all you need to know about how we can take advantage of the chance to impart the things that matter most in a way that our charges, our kids, and I want to talk about the staff in a minute as well, are desperate to get back to and be part of. It's not that education is a turnoff or it is problematic or we have to try to find a way to squeeze it in. They are desperate to be part of the educational framework that we provide because we bring educational experience to life in ways that are powerful, not always light. It's not always such a lighthearted thing. We deal with complicated issues at times, but it is powerful, it is collective, it is communal. And we bear, therefore, responsibility for imparting the experiences that are most desired by people who want more in the way of connection to the community and a deeper sense of personal identity. And I want to say something else that I think is really important as well, because when people think about camp, any camp, day or overnight, the assumption is that the point of camp is the experience we provide to the paying customer. Like, we're a business, we understand we have a revenue model, family pays, Junior comes to camp, our job is to give Junior this wonderful experience. All of those things are true, but we have two top priority constituencies that come to our camps every summer. Constituency number one, paying customer. Constituency number two are the staff that bring those camp experiences to life. We talk about the challenges of engaging Gen X and Gen Z and the millennials, whatever those next generations are being called. Those are the people that, when we identify them as a generation, are the ones that work in our camps. They are the products of the programs that they were in as campers. And we have them in our care and under our responsibility on a voluntary, repeating, intensive, immersive, intentional educational framework. The exact audience that we think is so hard to impassion and to energize comes to us to bring their passion and energy and to pass that experience on to others. And seeing them as audience 1A of our responsibilities as leaders makes a huge contribution to the future of the Jewish communities that we ultimately look to serve. I'm looking at a screen full of people, and I know we've got several screens today that are all products of camp, or almost every single one of you are products of camp. You didn't get into this business by accident. And you're a product of camp with your crew, right? Those are the people who are on this life journey with us together. Our crew, the people from our bunk, the people from our Adar, our group, the people that we staff together with. We have been given companions for a journey through life. And because somebody saw fit to focus on us as a staff, we became the next generation of adult leaders and educators for our camps and for the wider communities to which we're so deeply committed. There's nothing like it. There is nothing comparable to it. It's not the same in day school, and it's not the same in supplemental school, and it's not the same in Hillel. It's not the same anywhere else. Our responsibilities are uniquely powerful and uniquely important, and therefore, whatever we can do to make them as rich and impactful and as large as we can possibly make them, to make them accessible to the largest number of kids, that's the mission. And that's what we have to do to enable greater success.
I like that you spent some time talking about experiential education. You know, that's my pet topic. And underlying the fact that education isn't a dirty word and that education belongs in camping and that you're all, you know, everybody here is an educator. You're also 1,000 other things, but you're an educator. And you were practically on, you know, points 1 through 8 of Barry Chazan's definition of what is experiential education. And I recommend that to everybody to take a look, Barry Chazan. And you'll say, oh, I do that, I do that, I do that. Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Some of you may already be aware of that work. It's an honor to be doing that kind of work and to know that there's a there. It's a thing. It's not like, I remember when I was a camp director, oh, how fun that must be for you. Well, yeah, it's fun. I love camp and I love being at camp. But you know what? On, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning when, you know, the alarm went off and there was whatever it may be, it wasn't always so much fun. It was a lot of work. It was important. I felt like what I was doing was important. But I sort of applaud the idea to never forget sort of home base, which is what are we? We're in this because we're in the field of education, fun, experiential education. Yes, incredibly impactful education. I want to ask people if you want to start throwing some questions in the chat. I saw somebody started very early on that. I got to find it. Where is it? Where is it? Ah, you ready, Doron?
I'm ready.
How can our resident and day camps attract more philanthropy, mega philanthropy, to meet the needs of constituents today and tomorrow? How do we do that?
It's a great question. And I actually don't think that the distance is as great as it sometimes seems. First of all, many of the people in critical roles in the world of Jewish philanthropy are products of camp. They will probably reflexively be happy to support the camps that they went to, and they're very often doing that already. But to develop an appreciation of the impact that camping can have in general simply requires the elbow grease that it takes to do everything that we do well. And by the way, you know, here I'll share anecdotally that as I came to have to be involved as a fundraiser in the professional Jewish community, I did so kicking and screaming. It was the last thing that I ever thought I wanted to do. I was about more noble pursuits. I was about education and I was about inspiration. The last thing I wanted to be seen as being about was walking around with my hand out and a slick pitch, trying to get somebody to drop some cash across. But I discovered something else along the way that you all should know if you don't already, something that I learned at camp. We have always been in the business of getting people to see what we want them to see with regard to the opportunity they have by working with us. Most of the time, that means working with a family and getting them to say, yeah, I see what you could do for my child, and I'm willing to entrust my most valued possession to your care for a week or a month or a summer. There is no distinction between that and impassioning a funder. Parents who come to a camp promo in their living room or at the JCC or wherever you happen to do it, are coming knowing that what they have to contribute is the possibility that their child is going to attend and they're going to write a check for the tuition. And you know that what you want is for them to give you what they have. Philanthropists are exactly the same. They're in the business of giving their money away. And you're in the business of helping people see what the potential of camp is. If it's a parent, it's the potential for their kid. If it's a philanthropist or a funder, it's the potential of getting the return on their investment in terms of satisfaction by your being able to demonstrate to them that this is what's going to happen if you support the work that we do. This is what you can make possible, and this is the satisfaction that you're going to get. The epiphany for me was discovering that resource development or fundraising was no different than helping people see the opportunities I had to offer them when I was a camp director. It's simply a different request for somebody who comes to the table with a different asset or a different resource. So the answer to the question is, you got to devote time and energy to finding the philanthropists that are in the orbit of the geography that you serve and making it your business to help them see you as the opportunity that you are. They are looking for opportunities to invest their philanthropy, and we have few rivals in the kind of impact that we can help them to achieve. And that's what they want. They want impact. They are out there and the resources are virtually unlimited relative to our needs.
A lot of folks on this screen are experts themselves in what I'm about to ask, but I think it's fair to say, Doron, that you have very good words. And so I'm going to ask you to answer this question in the hope that you can offer an articulate speech, some language maybe that can help our folks in this issue that people have with attracting and maintaining quality staff. In other words, you talked about the value added for funders. Everybody here knows the value added for staff members, but maybe you can, let's hear you say that, because I think you may have a line or two that we haven't thought of that could really be helpful to folks.
Look, that's a great question and a complicated question. And I know that our camps are only ever as good as the people that we bring in to staff them and to bring them to life. And it's all about pipeline, like almost anything else. Staffing camp, in my opinion, is not about, gee, I've got a summer coming up, I better start thinking about how I'm going to fill the ranks of my staff, all my counselors and my specialists, my administration folks. It's about a pipeline of staff. You are perpetually involved in recruiting staff, and you should be thinking in terms, as I know you are, and so forgive me if this sounds in any way patronizing, like I know something that you don't already know. You're staffing this summer for 2025 and 2026. You are beginning to get people jazzed about the idea that their time is going to come and they're going to have the opportunity to be the stakeholders, the keepers. We talked about this earlier, the keepers of tradition, the keepers of responsibility, the major moments that they provide. And we know that working in camp is every bit as much significant as a social experience as it is being in camp as a camper. You want to be there with your crew. So you need the linchpin player in the social circles. You need to find the people that are going to bring you the other people. We can always fill in on an individual basis, but if you're relying on a hardcore of people who love your camp because it's their camp, you're the director of their camp, they are not the campers at yours, then they will feel a responsibility to be there. In the old days, we used to view a generation of staff as being about 4 years. You would get them from the summer before their senior year of high school through perhaps 2 years of university and the summers around them. And you relied on that core group, and there was always the next group that was going to be rising to that place. I hear a lot of people talking about, can we help our staff by getting them an internship credit? Can we call it a fellowship to work in camp? Can we design some sort of a framework? I think those things are nice, but at the end of the day, you don't want them there because of what you're paying or providing. You want them there because they really want to be there. They are your partners in delivering the thing that mattered most to them. And then, as I said, we smooth out by adding the complementary parts that we need. And I know that no camp director doesn't spend the bulk of their year with ongoing concerns about specific staffing needs. But what we want to know is that we're working today to staff in 3 and 5 years, and that the pipeline is going to be full and robust with the best possible people, which are the ones that know us the best.
You very gracefully said something that reminds us of the title of the session. We called it Camp. It's just the beginning. And initially it was really about Doron Krakow and how camp was just the beginning of your career in the Jewish communal world. And then it turned into what you just talked about, which is it could potentially be just the beginning, whether it's a first-year person who sticks around for a few years, or it could be a person who may find themselves in a career in camping or in the Jewish communal world. I mean, I don't know how many people on the screen ever thought, gee, I woke up one day and I wanted to be a camp director when I was, 10. Maybe when you were 10, actually you did because you were at camp. But I think a lot of people wind up in that career path, something came their way. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I think for a lot of people I've known, and I'm old, so I've known a lot of people, they look at that sort of career and maybe they push it aside. Not you folks, obviously, but they push it aside because it's not a real, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a this, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this. And of course it is a career, and it's an incredible career. And I wonder if in the world in which we wake up, summer of 2021, summer of 2022, in a new world, there are opportunities now to go out and find people to be, full-time people on your team, or, that's a question I would love to ask folks here. Maybe we'll be able to have a little back and forth. Are people more interested in a career in the Jewish communal world because other things have shut down for them, or they've taken another look at their priorities?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's certainly possible. I do know that, again, I'm looking at people. I see Janet Fliegelman, who's one of the great longtime leaders in our field. We know that we have had the extraordinary privilege of being able to do the most satisfying work that there is to do and make a living doing it. The work of bringing summer camp to life is such that we would love to do it simply because it scratches our itch to make a contribution and to do more and to do better. But we have a chance to do that and to make a living and to be part of something larger. I don't know that anybody, when we're growing up in elementary school, and people think that their dream is they're going to be president, or they're going to be a fireman, or they're going to be a nurse, or they're going to be something else. I don't know that anybody's thinking in terms of being a camp director or a JCC executive or a Jewish communal, whatever it is that we call ourselves. But we discover that we have a chance to devote our waking hours and our professional lives to doing good and to making a mark. And again, I don't know that there's a place in the Jewish world where we do that more meaningfully, more effectively, and more powerfully than we do in the camping world. So our commercial is, come be part of something that you can't get anywhere else, and we will leave you feeling like you have transformed lives. It doesn't get any better than that. Okay,
we're going to move to a more operational maybe question that we got from one of our folks. First of all, thank you, Tony, for spelling Barry Chazan. Very important to spell that so that people could go look him up. Thank you. We have a question. Do you have any advice, Doron, or guidance for camp directors who have no additional support from their supervisors or execs?
Well, in a vacuum, it's hard to know exactly what to say there. We need to make sure that supervisors and execs understand the power and the significance of camp. Sometimes they do. I'd like to think that most of them do. Sometimes they don't. And when they don't, we don't simply take it as a given that they don't and they're not going to. I think we've got to find ways to engage them and to help them understand camp in ways that will have them have a far more enhanced appreciation of what they're all about. We know that in a lot of JCCs, camp are critical parts of the business and bringing revenue in. We know that's true of early childhood education as well. We know it's true of fitness as well. We also know that not all of the revenue that comes into our JCCs from these programs gets reinvested in these programs. There is a constant tug of war about the limited resources that we have and the unlimited opportunities we have to do good with them, but for accessing them. And I think it's always a push and pull that exists up and down the hierarchy of institutions and organizations and JCCs. I can tell you that our message to the JCC executives is there are no more important programs that we have than our summer camps, which create the community engine, the community, the population, the critical mass that we need to move the needle on Jewish community and Jewish communal life. Therefore, whatever we can do to increase our commitment to those things is critically important. And we need to make sure if camp is not getting the attention that it richly deserves anywhere, that we're advocating. You're advocating, and we need to be advocating. And we want to be aware, and there are opportunities for us to be helpful in bringing attention and focus to doing better.
And in the spirit of the collective wisdom and talent on the screen, I'm sure there are people here who could be helpful. So if you do feel like you can send me your information, or you can just throw it out on the screen and say, you don't want to come out and say, in a different lifetime, I had issues with a supervisor and I might be able to help you. Feel free to do that.
And look, Andy, I think this is going to be something that we're going to be living with, right? We're living with this at the association as well. Revenue is down as a result of the pandemic. We are being asked to do as much as we used to do with a lot less, or sometimes we're asked to be doing more than we were able to do when we had more. And we're going to be confronted with the need to stretch this year. And sometimes it means we're going to have to find a way. And again, I think that's part of the beauty of what happens in camp, which is presented with a challenge, you figure it out. Presented with a storm, you find a way to get the kids inside. Presented with an outbreak of a stomach flu, you find a way to figure out how to get the camp through it. Presented with a sudden historic moment or event, you find a way to integrate it into the program. We've been presented with an unprecedented moment in the history of our work. Nobody has seen a pandemic like this in 100 years. Nobody. Therefore, how we respond and react and engage will be defining and give us a chance to strut our stuff and to show how important and powerful we can be relative to the ultimate goals and impact that we desire to have, which is greater Jewish community and more vibrant Jewish life and strengthening ties and strengthening connections. We are invaluable where that's concerned, and therefore, ultimately, we can manage with what we have and find the resources that we're going to need to do it beyond the current moment.
So let's zoom out a little bit again. We have a question about, because you have kind of a bird's eye view of the Jewish communal world, internationally even. Somebody wants to know, who are you looking at? What individuals are sort of doing great things for the Jewish people right now? Maybe not the obvious answers, the ones that maybe you're seeing new leadership crop up. And what are the organizations that you're looking at? Besides us, obviously.
Wow, that is a great question. I'm going to think about that while I offer a related perspective that I hope and expect you're all seeing. I actually think that the most powerful outgrowth of the pandemic has been the unexpected readiness of people to link arms and work together in ways that they hadn't before. I'm looking still to see whether the screen has shifted. I know that the Strom JCC in Seattle lent facility and support to local day camps, both that were associated with the JCC and those that weren't. I know that Michelle Copeland and her team expanded their ability to serve populations that had not been in their primary catchment. I know that at Camp Tawonga, they were opening up and engaging opportunities for local day camp programs to tap into facility opportunities at camp. Camp began to look at ways that it could contribute in a time that they were constrained from doing primary, typical, regular programming and work, and sought opportunities to contribute what they could to others who had needs or for which particular opportunities could be found. That has application in every aspect of the work of the JCC movement, where JCCs and synagogues, social service agencies and JCCs, day schools and JCCs, these agencies and one another began to look at the opportunity to say, how do we raise all boats by working together? I alluded to what Betsy Lynch and the team at the Lawrence Family JCC in San Diego did to make day camp accessible last summer to people that couldn't get to the JCC by partnering with synagogues who would have been our most august competitors in a prior framework. So actually, when I look at the leaders that are making their mark, I'm looking at people who have thought beyond their own interests and who have demonstrated that everybody wins if they think more broadly and they think about how together we can do things that we can't do on our own. And there are a litany of them across our field and a litany of them beyond our field. It's not that there's an oracle of great new leadership coming out of the pandemic. There are a myriad of great initiatives that are reflective of people thinking broader, thinking more expansively about how we can contribute the things that we do to creating an even greater impact than we were creating before.
Great. Doron and I were raised in Yom Judea to always cut something at its peak. So even though this program was scheduled for 80 minutes, we're going to start closing up here. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. I have one final question. I want to give people another second if somebody's typing.
Camp directors usually have a lot of things to say. Maybe it's not questions so much as comments. We want to invite you into this conversation with us.
You know, if somebody wants to ask a question, you make a comment, we can certainly do that. It would be a little, I'll need Steve and Janine to help us see if you have a hand raised, but we can do that if anybody just wants to add to the conversation. You know, Doron, I say this, and I say this with absolute admiration. These people, they're listening very carefully. They're also like, they're bunking, and they're talking to their facilities person, and somebody got a call about a person who's ready to be a unit head. So they're like, yes, I'll be on that. You know, we so appreciate that you came. We know that this is a tough time of year for you. And we're so thrilled. We had, 180 people
Amazing.
Sign, come join us today. So we get it. If you just need there to sort of be and let us do the talking, that's okay too. But let me see if something comes in. We have a question. Is there something people are doing differently from a staffing point of view because of COVID? Maybe that was, Rika, you were asking the crew that you were having sort of a conversation internally, right? Yeah. Okay, anything, Bernardo, am I missing anything? I have like 12 people helping me. I need a lot of support. No, I don't think I'm missing anything here. I think we're ready to, anybody, a hand raise that I'm missing wants to comment? So I'm going to ask you, and don't worry, because there are more announcements after this. That's why I have to, stop with Doron, because I have many more announcements. But I may tap dance while I do them because I want them to be amusing. This is a simple and an impossible question that I'm going to ask. What do you want to say to these people as they're 6 weeks out or less from their summer? It is. There was such heartbreak last year. I've been explaining that it's a sense of like joy and anxiety, probably. I think it will be unbridled joy for those, a lot of these folks opened last summer at the day camps, but to be back at camp, and there's a certain anxiety. What's your last words of wisdom to these folks who are doing this important work this summer?
Look, the first thing that I would tell you is I am deeply grateful to you and incredibly proud of the work that you're doing. I can't underscore enough how important what you do is to everything that we aspire to be as a field and as a community. And it's been a long stretch in between being able to be in the places we want to be in the teeth of the work that we love doing so much. I'm incredibly grateful for your fortitude, for your determination, for your tirelessness in approaching this summer. And I know that not everything is going to look the way that it did back in the summer of 2019. I know that the Israeli staff are lining up and we are processing them fast, and you're going to have a remarkably energized crew that's coming from there, and that we're going to have to make up with our Israeli staff some of the folks that we can't bring from the other international locations. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity, by the way, to make sure that Israel has an outsized place in the minds and hearts of your programs and your staff and your campers this year. I also want you to know that whatever it is that you need that we can possibly bring to bear to support you, we're going to provide. This is going to be a memorable summer. This is going to be the summer we came back. This is going to be the summer we started to establish the new baseline of the places that we're going to go. This is going to be a summer that you and your staff and your campers will remember specifically for the rest of their lives. We all talk about what we remember from camp, but in the end, there's a pileup of camp seasons that we were in, and our memories blur from one year to the next. But there are moments, there are individual summers where we're going to get to experience something that undoubtedly is going to stay with us forever. What an extraordinary opportunity we have, knowing that before we get there, that what we do is going to stay with them this year for the rest of their lives. It's going to be the year they came back to camp after COVID. And we have the ability to make magic. And again, magic that's going to stay with these kids, not for a month or for a year, but in all likelihood for the rest of their lives. How many people, how many professionals have the privilege of being able to do that? It's an honor. And I am quite envious that I won't be in a position to be able to contribute that directly myself, since I'm no longer a camp director, but I hope that time and opportunity will allow me to experience it through you in person along the way. And if not, through the stories and experiences and upshot of the things that you're going to be able to make possible. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I am grateful and very proud to call you my colleagues and my partners, and I believe the most important leaders on the Jewish organizational landscape.
Did you hear that? Most important leaders in the Jewish organizational landscape. That's something to put on your resume. Doron, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I must apologize. And look, you're getting close. There were a couple of questions and statements that I somehow brushed by, not on my regular computer, so I'm a little bit off. So I apologize, but I do know that Doron is always open to inquiries and conversations. Janine's going to throw his email into the chat for you. And I know it because I've seen it. Don't hesitate. Be in touch.
Bring it on.
Build a, part of what we wanted to do here was to bring you closer to Doron. Doron, I think, feels very close to you without knowing all of you personally, but camp guy, there's already a bond. So don't be shy. Send him a message. I'm happy as well to be helpful if I can. It's really been wonderful to listen to you. It makes me very, very happy. And I feel like your attention to this cohort of camp people, and I speak of the total camp cohort without any division of day or overnight, is the greatest statement you could maybe make this week. And I hope people understand that. There were a lot of choices for Doron to make, and he chose the camp peer community. Now stay with me, because this is really great stuff I've done here. This one really is. If you saw it in your email, we were given access to the newest set of CDC guidelines 24 hours before the rest of the world. So you should have seen them in your mail, and you should have also seen a link to a conversation with Dr. Craig Thomas on May 10th, who helped write those protocols. I encourage you to send, it's fine to just tune in and listen. It will be very productive if you send some questions in advance to me so that I can, try to see what people are really after. We'll only have an hour with him. So I encourage you to do that if I don't stab myself.
And by the way, he's a great guy and a friend of the movement.
Oh, these people know him. He was on a call with us last year. He's a very good friend of the movement. The next time we meet as peer, first of all, the day camp folks are going to move on to another Zoom call for the camp directors roundtable, and Janine's going to put that link in there for you. Our next peer community session is tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern. The Zoom link is in SpotMe, and this time we're going to be separate into the overnight and the day, but we're all working on the same general topic of mental health, each with different experts helping us address that unfortunately never-ending issue. We want to encourage you to visit the vendor hall. It's going to be open today from 4 to 5. If you have a trusted advising session, you should have a link. And JCC Cares is our first ever continental service opportunity between 5:15 and 6:15 today. And there's a couple of really amazing, goodness, you are a handsome dude, but seeing you twice in one day is enough. Terrific words of wisdom that were confidential to Doron, but sorry, David.
We appreciate you reading them.
They went on the screen and I read them. But really, this JCC Cares initiative is really something beautiful. And one of the projects is helping people who are looking for vaccines get them, vaccinations get them. Before our peer community tomorrow, you're invited to connect with your colleagues at a mindful motivator at 12 p.m. Day camp directors, you've got your link. And I really, truly want to thank everybody in this incredibly busy time for joining us. It was really wonderful to see these faces, to see these names. I wish I could have engaged more. I hope you felt that it was time well spent. I certainly think anytime you get a chance to spend time with the person who's setting the tone for the movement, it's time well spent. And on top of that, camp guy, Doron.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Good luck. Have a fabulous, healthy, happy, safe summer.
See you around
everybody.
ProCon.
Thank you. Thanks, Janine, Steve, Bernardo. Thank you.
Bye.